Hey, what's up, guys? I'm here today to show you how to fakie, like I just did, like right there a second ago. I hope it was on film. I hope I'm filming right now. Wait, am I? Yeah, we are. So I'm here to teach you how to fakie. Why am I doing this video? I don't know. No, really the reason why is because my last how-to video was how to just install Thunderbolt cranks from Odyssey and how to install your bottom bracket. And somehow that 45-minute video, as long as that is, got 1,000 views and has 15 likes right now, which that's like the most I've had for anything on my channel. And that's awesome. I never thought any of my videos would have 1,000 views, and I'm stoked on that. So basically what I want to do is start making a thing where if I get a certain amount of views on my other how-to, then I'll make a new one. So that's what I'm doing right now. I got 1,000 views on that, making a new how-to. And if I get 2,000 views on this, and let's go for 30 likes, then I'll make another how-to. And you guys can leave comments below of what you think you might want to see for another how-to. Something I could do preferably, because, you know, I'm not that good. So that's why I chose for this one, just a fakie, because I'm in no way no master of fakies or anything like that, but I can fakie pretty far and I figure them out pretty decently. So I just wanted to pass that knowledge on in any way I could, because they're still kind of difficult for me in some ways, so at least I can relate to those who are struggling with it and kind of tell them how I figured things out, and it's more relatable since it was not too long ago. I'm drawing on a lot. Anyway, so how to fakie. Basically, what you want to do is first you're going to want to figure out how to go backwards first, because that's obviously what a fakie is. So, great, nice, thanks. He's going to do it some more, because motorcycles are really cool. Basically, you want to go backwards, right? You got to figure out a way to go backwards. So the best way to go backwards, I'd say, in my personal opinion, is to learn a nose press, which is where you go up to a curb at a moderate speed, hit your front tire on it, lean forward with it, kind of like trying to do like a little nose, and you just keep leaning forward, and don't lean forward too far, and then you just hold that there and lean back, and then the bike will release its pressure off the curb and take your momentum backwards. That's a good way to start learning them. That's how I learned fakies, and it was the best way for me. It's easy to do because you can do it off a curb or a wall, something like that, and it's not too much of a risk. If you go a little past the point of going over the bars, then you can just put your feet down real quick. You know, I mean, you might go over the bars once or twice, but it's really not too dangerous because you're not moving. So that's one way you could do it. Another way you could do it is basically do the same exact thing as a nose press, but don't lean forward into the curb if you don't feel comfortable with that. Basically just go, oh my gosh, basically just go up to the curb at a moderate speed still, and then push your pressure into the curb, but don't lean forward too much. Just kind of push your arms into it and stop, and then pull back with all your might and lean back as far as you can to get off the curb and start pushing your momentum backward. You usually can't get as fast of a rollout, so it's kind of, you have to do things quick, but it'll get you the idea of a fakie a little bit. Another way you could do it, if for some reason you could 180 but you can't fakie, I would suggest that if you can, try to 180 and just land fakie and just start working at the fakie. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but that's one way you can get into it as well, if for some reason you can do that. Also, you can put your foot in the wheel, do a foot jam, and then you can lean forward a little bit with that, and then lean back, take your foot out, and start pedaling backwards. The only thing that's kind of hard about that is you have to take the foot out and put it back on the pedal really quick, which is kind of hard if you're just learning how to fakie, but I've seen people do it. Actually, my friend Eric learned fakies that way, so it just depends on what you feel comfortable with. Those are most of the ways that I know of. Another way that's kind of easy, go up to a steeper bank and then roll up it, not all the way to the top, just, you know, however far up you feel like going up to fakie, and then hop when you get to the peak of like your speed's gone, like you're just sitting there, hop and then start leaning back after you land. Or you don't have to hop, you could try to just, lose your speed and then go backwards, but that's kind of hard. Usually a hop will kind of set you back into the back speed, make it a lot easier. If you have like a bank, you could also put jam off the bank, go backwards. Other than that, there's not a lot of ways you could go backwards, to be honest. So I'd recommend learning one of those ways, get an idea of how you're going to start a fakie first, because otherwise you're not going to be able to do the fakie at all. So do that. The next step to learning a fakie is leaning back. I can't stress that enough. I think that's one of the most important things to do in a fakie, and I found helps me the most in my fakies. It helps me get farther, it helps me have more control, and just feel situated so much better in a fakie. Helps me be able to get my feet around better, because I have a cassette. If you don't have a cassette, you don't really have to worry about that, but I feel like it helps a lot. Most professionals, you will see that they usually lean pretty far back, especially if they're on a cassette. So I've always kind of noticed that, and I've tried to always copy that body language. If you can, do that. Sit over your back tire as much as you can, like you're trying to do a manual backwards almost. Just don't pull really hard. Just lean back, let your arms fully extend and just keep leaning back. The best place to look when you're faking is look at your front tire, because it's usually going to be turning for you to control your fakie, and that'll help your body know which way to turn. Like your wheels turning right, you got to lean to the right a little bit to keep that turn, or maybe your weight's too far over to the right already, then you got to turn that wheel left, and then you got to adjust your weight back over to the left. So you're always going to have to be turning the wheel, make little adjustments. That's just how fakies are until you get really, really good, where you can just like keep the wheel straight and your balance perfect, which I haven't even done yet. So I would definitely recommend looking like just right ahead of your stem at your front wheel. I think it's really important that you don't look at the ground, because I used to do that, and when you're looking at the ground, you're moving backwards and the ground's moving forwards. So what you start to do is like looking at the ground, your eyes stay in that spot or whatever, and they start to follow it, so your body starts following it, and then you start leaning forward in a fakie, and you don't want to do that either. So I would say lock it on something on your bike that you feel it works for you. For me, the wheel. Some people the stem, whatever you feel like is giving you good balance, but that's what I found gives me the best balance so far. Now what you got to do, if you're on a cassette anyways, you got to pedal backwards. So the best thing to do for that is to just basically lean back, and when you start going backwards, the pedals are the cranks are gonna start moving themselves, because it's a cassette. That's how it works. The best thing to do is just kind of let that pressure of that going backwards push your pedals around. Don't like push against it in any way. Just let that slow crank back. As I was saying, let that slow crank back just to control your crank back. You don't have to just chainsaw it like crazy. Unless somehow that works for you, you can go for that. Some people do that, but...
Pa! What are you, crazy?
It's not usually a good way to balance, because you're just switching your balance from left to right really quick, and if you're learning it, that's going to make it really hard to control. So just let those cranks kind of move your feet back. Don't put pressure against them too much. At some point, you're going to want to try to at least do half a crank. You could start with like a quarter crank, like just barely move back, and then try to turn around, and then you're going to go to a half crank, try to turn around, full crank, try to turn around, and you could try more than that. The other thing you want to do is know how to control your weight. The best thing is to get good at bike balance in general, just by doing balance training in your area, like riding on curbs, curb rides, double tire rides, trying to stay on like lines in the road, something like that. Trying to just, feel comfortable on your bike, feel like any way you lean, you're gonna lean that way. You're not just gonna like fall over. So that would be definitely a good thing to help. Definitely get some balance where you feel really sturdy. and that's going to help a lot in the long run. Your body's not just going to be perfectly straight, hardly ever. Sometimes it will be, and you'll hang in there for a second, but when you're starting out, you're usually your weight's going all over the place a little bit because you're not sure how to function this new thing that you're doing. So when your weight's going back and forth, best thing to do is whichever way you're leaning too much, just try to counter lean that, and also turn your wheel. So say I'm like leaning too far to the right, I'll turn my wheel to the right so that the back of the wheel is heading to the left to get me out of that, and I'll also counter lean. So I'll lean on the left side of the bike with the wheel turning, and that'll eventually bring my weight over to the left side of the bike. So the bike will start to weave back towards the way you want to get back towards, and you can just follow the bike and hold on to the handlebars. Sometimes it's going to feel like you're going to fall over. Just don't give up till you have to put that foot down. Just keep leaning and keep turning, and eventually you'll figure out that you can hang on a lot longer than you think, and you can adjust a lot more than you think. Now when you do this, it's actually going to make you start to do like a little turn. You might even turn farther than you think. You might even turn all the way around. So it's just going to happen. It's part of learning it. You got to just learn how to keep straight, and at first you're leaning so much that it's not easy to keep straight. So even if you go a little ways and you turn weird, who cares? It's not important. Over time you're going to get better, and you'll be able to control it to where you could fakie right through like 2 cones or something like that. And that's another way you could try to help yourself, is put some cones down or something, some lines on the ground, try to fakie through them, get straighter and straighter, and that'll help you as well. Now that you got all that's basically what you need to do a fakie. But a lot of people, including me especially, I feel that to be a real fakie, you have to get that turnout, and you have to turn all the way around. I mean, yes, you're doing a fakie, and that's commendable in every way in itself, but to actually be a legit fakie, I think you need to get the turnout. I think that like declares it. If you fakie and you don't get out, that's still cool. You still are progressing, and keep working at it. Eventually you're going to get the turnout. The turnout is probably the hardest part of the fakie. A lot of people struggle with that when they're first starting out, especially me. I didn't really understand how that worked. How to turn out, I would say pick a way you like to turn first, like just on the ground, like the way you feel most comfortable turning, preferably kind of steep. Like if you feel really comfortable getting steep, turning right or left, pick that way, whatever way that may be. For me, it's the left side. Pick that way. It doesn't have to be which foot's in the front. I turn towards my front foot, so it doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. It might hinder you in the future, but it's going to just be easier to learn at first, and then you can actually transfer those mechanics to turn the other way easier. So pick a way. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start leaning towards the opposite way of whichever way you want to turn. So I turn left. Let's say you turn left too. You're going to want to lean to the right, turn your wheel to the left like we talked about earlier to control yourself. But this time you're going to want to keep leaning to the right and keep the wheel turned to the left just a little bit. Don't like crazy just lean over. Just give it a little lean, turn the wheel, and you don't have to lean too much. You can just lean just barely any, just enough to kind of get the bike to swivel towards that way a little easier. Say you're turning to the left, you're going to start leaning to the right just a little bit to get your bike to start dipping over that way. Then once your bike starts dipping over to the right, like it's starting to lean, what you want to do is counter lean like you normally would when that happens, and then keep your wheel turned. Don't just level it out with the bike like you normally would to stay straight. Keep it turned. You can let it come farther around if you don't want to do as much of a turn. you're gonna want to start looking over your shoulder, and don't turn the wheel just yet. Look over your shoulder, and then just kind of use pedal pressure. You can also time this out to like have your feet flat to turn around. Sometimes I don't have time to think about it. I'm just faking really fast, and I just start putting pedal pressure wherever it feels comfortable. And that's what I do still to this day. I kind of just let whatever feels like a good time to do it. But you can time it out, like fakie for a little while, and then know like, okay, you're right here. By the time I do my turn, I'll be at like a half a crank more back, and they'll be flat, and then I can use pedal pressure and turn around. So just time it out in your head, or if you just want to not think too much about that, because that'll distract you from trying to learn it, like it's too much to think about. That's how I was. So just don't focus on it, just turn and then lean, and then turn your head, use your pedal pressure, push against those pedals, and pull up your front end, and just look that way and pull your bike towards it to turn around. It would be good to probably learn like some manual 90s, like just how to like turn 90 on the ground, or turn a little farther than 90. That helps. You could also half cab it out of this trick, but that's a whole nother trick, and it's not as easy. I feel like if you have a free coaster, I don't think those have pedal pressure. I don't know how they work. I never rode one really, but I think I think you can engage pedal pressure and then it'll turn around. So it should be similar. If not, you can just kind of, work back, and then your feet are already in the place you want them anyway, so you could just quickly do the exact same thing I'm talking about. You can just lean to the right, turn your wheel to the left, or whichever way. You could be the other way. Then it'll be leaning left, and then turn to the right. You just want to make sure that when you're turning back and you're at that quarter of the way or halfway, then halfway towards your 180, or a quarter of the way towards your 180 in the turn, then you just want to look, pull your bike with you, and the best thing is when you get to that point, throw all your weight towards that way that you want to turn. Like say your weight's going to be on the opposite side of the bike, so when you start looking, pull all your weight from that opposite side of the bike to this side now, the side you want to turn to, and just yank over it and pull it. And you might get a little steep. Sometimes you have to take your foot off or something. You just maybe use too much pedal pressure and going a little too fast when you try to turn around, something like that. That you'll work out pretty quick. That's not a big deal. A lot of times you can even start by just going like completely 90, like turn till you get to 90, and then you can just put pedal pressure and just like stop in place and then turn to the left. That's how I started to learn it. You just kind of like stop your bike and then turn to the left, and you're kind of getting the feel of it. And then eventually you can start lifting up and doing the same exact thing, and you'll get farther around, and you can pivot on your back wheel. But if you're learning, you're gonna probably just do the rollout version a few times, and I'll show you a few of those. But also another way you could technically land a fakie is just going backwards and use pedal pressure and then go straight forwards again, or forwards and then turn around or something like that. But I don't feel like that looks that good. It's better if you can get the rollout. That's, I think, the key doing a good fakie. I think that's what makes it look good. So try to learn that, and then just keep working on pulling over, trying to keep your weight over. Turn your wheel when you're starting to lift up or starting to turn that way. Or if you're coming back just slow, you don't have to turn your wheel until you stop, and then you can turn it and lean that way. But if you're trying to do the pivot way, just yank, lean, and turn your wheel and start pulling your bike that way. Eventually you'll get it around. It's all about the pedal pressure too. Using that pedal pressure is going to keep your front end up so it can pivot for longer while you're pulling your bike. So make sure you get good firm pressure on there, and you'll figure out how to not go so steep and not too low. And eventually you can even just barely use pedal pressure and just like slide your tire all the way around. So that looks kind of cool. Adds a little style to your fakie. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Fakies are fairly simple. I know I probably went a little in depth and made it sound not simple at all, but I just want to make sure that I kind of relay any information I have to anybody, any different type of person. I don't want to leave something out and someone's like, wait, but how do you do this, or that doesn't make sense. So I'm trying to just think of anything I could say, and it's probably a lot, and it's probably going to be a longer video than I'm expecting, but hey, whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much it for learning how to fakie. If you enjoyed this how-to, please leave a like down below. Try to get to 30 likes. Tell your friends. Let anybody know, your mom, your dad, your kids, your, I don't know, just aliens. I don't know, just tell them all. Tell them about this video, have them watch it. Hopefully they can learn how to fakie too. That'd be awesome. And let's try to get 2,000 views on this. That would be great. And I'll make another how-to. Leave some suggestions down below. I'll take a look at those. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later.